Together with me, I have Dr. Peter Goldstraw, and he's one of the founding fathers of the European Society of Thoracic Surgeons. Hello, and welcome to this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We would like you to tell us what was your role in organizing and inspiring the European Society of Thoracic Surgeons 30 years ago.
To understand the origins of the ESTS, we have to understand the history of thoracic surgery and the development of cardiac surgery. So we need to go back to the middle of the 20th century. By that time, thoracic surgeons and their anesthetic colleagues had dealt with all of the difficulties of operating inside the chest, finding a way through the bony cage that protects the thoracic organs, and dealing with a patient with a pneumothorax who you have to maintain their breathing, allowing the surgeon to operate on one lung whilst the other one keeps the patient alive. So all that had been achieved by the middle of the 20th century, and so thoracic surgeons at that time were regularly operating on lung diseases, on esophageal conditions, chest wall conditions within the mediastinum. The sole remaining challenge was the heart. And so it was natural that thoracic surgeons started to focus on how they could operate on the heart. So the generation of cardiac surgery was within thoracic surgery. And very quickly, with the development of reliable heart-lung bypass machines, surgeons were able to do much more operating in the heart. We had the development of coronary angiography, echocardiography, and that meant that cardiac surgery became feasible for a larger number of conditions, and there was a vast need for it within the community. So cardiac surgery was rather like the cuckoo's chick. It grew within the thoracic surgery and became bigger and more interesting than thoracic surgery. So, very quickly, young surgeons coming into the specialty to do thoracic surgery were captivated by the possibilities of cardiac surgery. They thought it was the exciting bit. That's where all the research was going on. That's where the papers were being published. And so the conferences became more and more cardiac. And of course, because of all the equipment that was needed in cardiac surgery, the pacemakers, the development of artificial valves, and all sorts of equipment, the money came to the conferences for cardiac surgery. And so by the 1970s, 1980s, all of the joint meetings of cardiothoracic surgery became dominated by cardiac surgery. And to be fair, there wasn't much happening in thoracic surgery at that time either. So it was the dull, uninteresting bit of cardiothoracic surgery. However, come the 1970s, 80s, new enthusiasm came to thoracic surgery because new techniques were being developed. We had the immensely important development of CAT scanning, giving us three-dimensional pre-operative imaging to plan our surgery. And so suddenly thoracic surgery became interesting again, and lots of science came from it, and there was nowhere where you could get an audience for your work. All of the joint operations were now predominantly cardiac, and things really came to a head in about 1990 when there was a cardiothoracic meeting here in Italy, in Napoli, and the thoracic surgeons present found that they had come long distances with their teams to hear about thoracic surgery, and it was a half day in a meeting in a small room with very little audience. And so we started to say, look, we need another audience for our thoracic surgery scientific developments. And The Americans were ahead of us. They had much more thoracic surgery in their meetings, but there was nothing in Europe. We had the European Respiratory Society, which we all joined. I was a founding member of the ERS, and they were interested in thoracic surgery, but we were overwhelmed by asthma doctors. We had the ESTS. I was a founding member of the ESTS. That was still cardiac, and they would not listen to the needs of thoracic surgery. So the discussion from 1990 onwards was, how do we develop a voice for thoracic surgery developments in Europe? And that led to the meeting in Heidelberg with Ingolf Voigt-Michael and the establishment of the STS. I was just one of the people who was grumbling about nowhere to present my science, and encouraged Ingolf and a few others to develop the first world conference, the European conference on thoracic surgery.
Yes. And could you tell us a few things also about London 2020?
Yeah. In the first few years of the society, we were living hand to mouth. There was no investment, there was very little sponsorship. So the meetings were being organized by the core group of people who had set up the STS. Early on, I suggested I organize a meeting in 2020. That was some years ahead, and there was a reason for that. The reasons were that basically by 2020 we would know if the STS was viable or if it would die, and I wouldn't have to do the conference. But also by 2020 there was the real possibility that an existing cardiothoracic society would realize that thoracic surgery was worth cultivating, and so we wouldn't need the STS. Neither of those things happened, so I ended up having to organize the conference in 2020, which was a great honor and a great pleasure. But it did highlight that here was a society that was going to survive. It was viable. It was largely being organized by surgeons themselves, so we were busy people in the operating theater and didn't have a lot of time for the administration, so we knew that we needed a full-time administrator. And that was when we brought on board Sue Hesford, who really took on the administration of the whole of the society, and the most important thing, she had a rigorous financial policy. So for once, we started to make money that we could invest in other projects. And that was really all coming to a head in London in 2020. That's also when, through a very generous patient of mine, we had funding to establish a prize for the best scientific presentation in our meeting. Because it was in London and because I worked at the Brompton Hospital, we called it the Brompton Prize. And I'm delighted to see that the Brompton Prize is still continuing in the society, and it's now even more prestigious as the top award that the society gives at its annual conference.
So that's all really very great, and we hope that the society continues to progress another 30 years and why not 100 years. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you very much. Bye.